So today I'm going to talk a little bit about N8N, a little bit of an introduction to it for you through a project that I've been working on. And I've named my little presentation, Build Like a Farmer. So for those of you who know me and know a little bit about my background, I grew up on the farm. I'm from rural Manitoba, Canada. And so unlike a lot of people, I spent my days on the fields, on the tractor, milking cows, feeding chickens, that type of thing, which is often an unusual thing nowadays where so many people grow up in the city. So I like to have a lot of my philosophy comes from what I've learned on the farm. So maybe a little bit of a background into me other than just the fact that I grew up on the farm. Who am I? So there's a lot of terms here that people have used to describe me. I've got a background in all kinds of technologies and all kinds of different things. Really, when it comes down to it all, is I'm just a tech nerd. I love technology. I love working with different things, hardware, software. I like to build stuff. I've got a nice build area I've kind of built up over the years. And so I like to get my hands dirty. And because of that, um, I think I've exposed myself to a lot of different technologies and a lot of different processes over the years that lets me kind of tie different things together that other people might not have thought of in the beginning. So build like a farmer. How do you do that? Um, Growing up on the prairies, I initially felt that growing up on the farm, I was missing out, that there was a lot of different experiences I wasn't having, a lot of different things that I couldn't do simply because I was stuck there on the farm. You know, when the people were going and doing things in the cities, learning all this different tech and stuff, I was stuck there, you know, digging in the dirt and you know, figuring out how to make sure that everything works properly. But later on, I discovered that there's a lot of those experiences were actually critical into how I think now, and that have really been a basis to any success that I've had in technology or life in general. So there's four things that I follow on a very regular basis, and I did that with this little project I'm going to be showing you that I built with N8N. So the first principle that I use is the fact that abundance can be the enemy of innovation. If we always have things at our hands and we always have different options available to us, quite often we'll give up too soon. And we don't actually dig into what the problem is and solve it. We just throw it aside and start over. So I think when we force ourselves into something that is a little bit smaller, a little bit tighter, we can get a lot more out of it and become a lot more knowledgeable in the process. Second principle that I like to use is you use the right tool for the right job. This is something my dad really instilled in me. He said that if you've got the right tool available to you, use it. Don't be lazy. You set it up right, you use it properly, and get it all working the way it should be. But there's a corollary to that, that if you don't have the right tool, you make the right tool. And that's one of the beautiful things I like about N8N is that if you don't have a node to do something, it's okay. Chances are, if you're working with an API, the HTTP request node will do for you what you need. So you can actually build out from there with the base tools what you need to get done. And it allows you to kind of move ahead with those tools. And then the last principle is you always need to be willing to help your neighbor. This is one of the things that really attracted me to N8N is the fact that this was not a product that was being built by some big corporation to add to its bottom line, to add to its coffers. It was being done as a passion project that, you know, as Jan had mentioned, you know, he started this out on his own, wanted to grow it out and make it available to other people. And simply because of that, I think it's important that we also give back. And so the tool that I'm going to be showing you here in a moment, I'm going to be making available and at the end of the presentation. Anybody can grab that tool, use it for themselves, no cost. If you need help, reach out. Glad to help out and make it work for what you need it to do. So this mysterious tool that I've been talking about is a newsletter sign up workflow. So I'm going to bring that up on the screen here. And if I can find it on my screen, there it is. So I spent a little bit of time over the last, well, this has actually been a work in progress for quite a while. This is the third generation of this workflow tool that I've created. And what this does is it allows you to give people a URL. They can then use that URL to see a web page. They can sign up to the web page. It saves the people's information in a grid on a tool called Baserow. And then from there, it will send them an email where they can click on the registration to confirm that their email is a legitimate email. So this is something we've all done 1,000 times. You sign up for something, this is a process you use. And there's usually a bunch of different systems in behind the scenes. This does the whole thing right from the workflow that you see. The only other component other than this workflow is Baserow itself, which I initially wasn't going to use Baserow. I was initially going to actually store all the information locally in a JSON file, but I wanted to use Baserow just to show you that you don't necessarily need a Baserow node in order to get access to the stuff. So there's three parts, as you can see, to this. So there's three webhooks. There's the sign up webhook, the submit webhook, and the confirm webhook. The sign up webhook, in combination with the HTML form and the create form file node, these three nodes will actually create the web page dynamically, so that it basically turns end-to-end into a web server. So we can go to that page. So here's a link to the sign up page. So this web page that you see here was written and created 100% in N8N. This does not access any external files, doesn't pull anything from any other web page. The graphic is actually embedded in the HTML, and the whole thing can be done, again, without having to worry about whether or not you've got a web server running or any other services. And just like a typical web service, you can fill it in. And when you hit submit, this actually fires up the second workflow. So this workflow here just got fired off. So what this does is it pulls the values that were submitted. It then takes that the new subscriber and adds it into the grid. And there's the information that I just entered in. So this is in Baserow. So it put this information in and created this GUID. And we'll see that now I've just had an email come in. And as soon as this pulls up, there's the email that was automatically sent by the workflow. And you'll notice this GUID here is part of the URL that has been sent out. So it connects for me the email address and that GUID so that you can actually tell that this is the right person. So when I click on it, this actually fires up the third workflow, which confirms that, yep, we've got your registration, your email has been confirmed, and in grid, we now have the confirmed checkmark. So once again, all of that was handled by all of these three workflows. This is a relatively simple setup. This took me, I think, all told, just building the whole thing out probably took me just to fine tune it and everything, because the web pages took the most fine tuning, maybe 2.5, 3 hours, and completely self-sufficient. So I don't need a web server. I don't need to worry about other services. Yes, I use grid, but easy enough for me to take these two grid nodes, that I'm calling them grid nodes, but they're actually HTTP request nodes, take those two nodes and replace them with a file, write and read, and so save all that information locally. So as you can see, fairly powerful. The reason I wanted to do something like this, because I was on a call a couple of days ago with somebody, and they referred to N8N as middleware. And to be frank, that's kind of where I started out, because I was looking at N8N as a tool to connect A to B, and we quite often use it as such. But I think this goes to show that it can be much more than that. You know, people often say, well, where's the form node? Where do I create a form to input stuff? You don't have to. You can use HTML and spit out the forms right then and there. And the nice thing about this is that you can actually turn these into workflows that you use over and over again, and just call the workflows back so that you push some HTML to it and it spits it all out. And these can become reusable over time. Anyway, that's kind of what I've got. I'm open to questions. Tanny, I'm going to hand it back over to you.